Many years have passed since Wendy Darling's last descendant, Natasha Darling, died without having children. The thing that made Peter Pan feel miserable and very sad. For months, he no longer showed the joy and laughter typical of a child. Even Tinker Bell surrendered to get him out of sorrow. Until the day Peter Pan finally left the house for the first time. He went walking along the Neverland beach, looking at the blue sky without clouds that seemed to shelter him from evil and misfortune. "It's been a long time," he said. His feet, which sank in the sand, then felt like kicking something. Peter Pan looked down and found a book. He took it to realize that this was the same book he had seen in the human world, or rather, in the Darling family house. Peter Pan returned to his house with a book in his arms. There was no Tinker Bell there, so Peter Pan put his book on the table and lay down on the bed. "Wendy, are you all right? I told you that growing up is not a happy thing." Seconds continued until Peter Pan involuntarily lulled into a dream. At the same time, the wind suddenly blew hard from the window that was left open. Then, as if by magic, the wind opened the pages of the book which were placed just on the table. When the wind stops blowing, the book shows a page with a picture of a city. Inside, there were so many tall buildings looming, like they were about to scratch the sky. The atmosphere is crowded and there are many vehicles crossing the road. But the most interesting is a small writing that seemed to stick out in the corner of the picture. "We are too small among the tall buildings in the city." At that moment, Peter Pan in his dream felt as if he were on a long and tense journey. His body felt stiff and was heavy. He was not even able to just lift his finger. Then, when he opened his eyes, above him was the sky, while around his body was something that smelled foul. As he recalled, his house had a roof and always smelled good because Tinker Bell always took care of it. Amid confusion, Peter Pan stood up to realize that his body was taller than before. His hands were no longer smooth. His palms were even rough and full of calluses. His fingers are no longer tapering, but full of small scratch wounds that have dried. Peter Pan then turned his body, which was now wrapped in a tattered cloth, worn pants, and sandals on his feet, which could not even protect him from the heat of the ground he was walking on. The saddest thing is his face. Now it's no longer the faces of adorable children, but the plight of a teenager with sharp jawbones, sunken eyes, and even layered eye bags. His forehead was blackened with dust, like he had never washed his face for several months. His hair was no less tangled, extending over his shoulder and sticking out like a bird's nest. Oh, even the bird's nest is neater than his current hair. Peter Pan slapped his face, hoping that he could wake up of his dream. Yes, Peter Pan thinks he is dreaming. A very, very bad dream. "Hey, are you awake? Are you hungry?" Peter Pan looked quickly, then found a girl, perhaps 14 years old, as dirty as he was. The girl has clear eyes between her dull face. She reached out to grab Peter Pan, but Peter Pan retreated quietly. "Hey, why? Are you mad at me?" Peter is silent. He is still trying to digest what he is experiencing right now. Alright, I know you are angry. I'm sorry. Here, you can eat now. Then we will go home. I've collected a lot of things. Look! The girl reached for the sack she had been carrying on her back. When the sack opens, it is filled with old plastic bottles and rusted iron bars of various sizes. Look, these iron bars can be sold at a hefty price. We can eat chicken soup tonight. Wait a minute. Who are you? Do I know you? The girl stiffened, then looked at Peter Pan with wide eyes. Peter, what do you mean? Are you really mad at me because I left you earlier? You even acted like you didn't know me. Come on, Peter, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Peter, Amy. Peter Pan muttered to himself. He was still confused, but seemed to understand a little. Something might happen, and he moved here, into the body of a teenager by the name of Peter. The girl, named Amy, took Peter Pan's hand and slipped a hard bun into his grasp. Then, without saying anything, Amy pulled Peter Pan and walking in a constant pace. A few moments later, Amy and Peter Pan, who still has not eaten something in his hand, arrived in a slum. Right behind a landfill, there are boxes placed in such a way that they form a house with a door made of cardboard. The bottom edge of the cardboard house is guarded by quite large stones. When Peter Pan entered the house with Amy's encouragement, he saw something that he had never imagined. The house is small, only 4 square meters. There was no mattress there, only a pile of cardboard boxes and some rags on it. There were no lights either, so it looked a little dark because it was late at night. There is a woman lying on the cloth. It looks like she is sick. Her body curled and trembled slowly. Mom, Peter and I have returned. I will go to the collector and buy chicken soup for us. That way, Peter Pan was left there. Then, the woman who had been called Mom turned her head to face Peter Pan, who was still standing near the window. Peter, come here, said the woman. Peter Pan walked slowly toward the woman. She should be 30, but the circumstance make her look like a 50-year-old woman. Have you eaten yet? Are you still hungry? Peter Pan just muttered under his breath. No, I'm not hungry. The woman smiled softly. She is actually beautiful. Then you rest. You must be tired, right? Peter Pan was led to sit next to the woman. He sat stiffly. In fact, he could not even be certain what this woman's relationship with him, or rather, the body he lived in. Peter, I'm sorry. I know you want to go to school. Later, when I recover, I will work hard and pay your school fees, so you can go there again. Is this right? Then Peter Pan suspected that this child, named Peter, used to go to school, but was short of money and was forced to stop and work with his sister, Amy, who had even quit school earlier. Peter Pan's guess is entirely correct. The family of 3 originally had a father who worked as a construction worker. Unfortunately, he died after falling ill for weeks. Then, the mother worked as a waitress in a restaurant. Only to find out that her mother-in-law had already sold the house where she lived to pay off debts. The family of three was finally driven out of the house and lived on the streets. Then made worse by the mother, who was fired because the restaurant owner was not satisfied with the speed of the mother's work. Peter and Amy had attended a junior high school. However, due to economic conditions that continued to be squeezed, Amy chose to stop and work as a collector of used plastic bottle and scrap metal. Peter, the younger brother, then went to school alone. But last week, the school told him to pay the monthly school fees. And when his mother found out about this, she gently asked Peter to stop for a moment from school. His mother had tried to find a loan of money, but didn't get it. Peter, who was stubborn, actually scolded his mother, shouting that he was sorry to have a mother like her, made his mother surprised and fell ill. Then Peter was beaten by Amy, and the next day he was forced to come to work with Amy. Today, Peter felt exhausted after running because he was yelled at as a thief. Amy had run away first, leaving his brother accidentally. Then, when she returned, she saw that her brother lying on the ground. Amy thinks that he is sleeping. Then she works alone. Then Peter Pan somehow placed his soul inside Peter's body, which means that Peter is actually dead. Peter Pan, who was held all night by Mother after finishing a bowl of chicken soup, then closed his eyes and fell asleep. In his heart, he hopes he returned to Neverland. The next day, Peter Pan is woken up by Amy. Then they go to work, each carrying a sack. Amy carried her sack on the back, while Peter Pan held his sack awkwardly. Peter Pan, who was not used to doing adult work, was forced to hunt scrap metal in trash cans, on the streets, in landfills, wherever he could go. He increasingly felt that the adult world was very scary, and the stronger the desire to remain the child. That's how 7 days passed, although sometimes Peter Pan would be annoying and lazy, but he is quite diligent in helping Amy. Amy is equally diligent, never complained or acted as if she regretted her fate. That afternoon, after a full day of searching for scrap metal and used plastic bottle, Amy invited Peter Pan to go to a hill behind the school where they had studied. The sun is waving in the west. The sky is yellowish and looks beautiful. Amy and Peter sat side by side looking forward. "Hey Peter, do you still remember what I said when I had to quit school?" Peter Pan was silent. Obviously, he didn't know anything because he was a person who accidentally moved into Peter's body. Amy chuckled. "I said that I want to become an adult as soon as possible. Do you want to know the reason?" Peter Pan was stunned. This is the second time he hears someone wanting to grow up as fast as possible. The first is, of course, Wendy darling. Why? Why do you want to grow up?" Amy smiled a little. Her eyes sparkled with tears. "I want to go through time when I can't help Mom. I mean, look at me. With this small body and young age, what can I get? I can only work like this, with a small salary." The girl was silent for a moment. In her mind, imagined difficult times after her father died. How much she loved childhood, until fate cruelly whipped her and made her even hate being a child. Peter, some children love their childhood because they are guaranteed. They don't need to live in a cardboard house behind a rubbish dump. They don't need to work with sweat pouring down for a bit of rice. They don't know how the painful things out there yet. But for some other children is just a painful time. Look around you. Children who beg, work as shoe shine boys, go busking, or even pick up used plastic bottles like us. This painful period is always expected to go quickly, or even better, to have nothing at all. Peter Pan was silent once more. He never thought of this. All he knows is that childhood is the best time a child has, while adulthood is like a terrible scourge that was never wanted. By the way, I know you are not my brother, Peter. Peter Pan stiffened, his eyes trembling as he looked at Amy. He swallowed. I know you are not my brother, Peter, from the first day you were here. I mean, from the first day you were in his body. You are different. My Peter is a child who tends to rebel and be lazy. I almost believe that Peter changed, but even Mom feels the same weirdness. Yeah, I'm not Peter. My name is Peter Pan. Amy smiled. It turned out that her hunch was right. In front of her was Peter's body, but his soul doesn't belong to Peter. Where do you come from? Neverland. Neverland? What is that place? A place where children will forever be in their childhood. Amy was stunned. That means you are... Yes, Amy. I am a child. Amy blinked in disbelief. Then, how did you get here? To Utopia? Peter Pan just shook his head. Even he still doesn't know why that happened. Then, are you going home? Once again, Peter Pan shook his head. He doesn't know when he can go home or how to get him home. But that afternoon, Peter Pan finally realized that Wendy Darling's decision to return to her home and grow up was indeed the right decision. If Wendy had never grown up, Peter Pan might not have understood what maturity was. He might forever sink into the fear of growing up. Peter Pan also realized that Neverland is just a better place to visit once in a while, and not the right place to live. A child's imagination can be satisfied in Neverland, but if he continues to sink into sweet imagination, then how will he face the harsh reality? That night, in the cradle of Mom and Amy, Peter Pan once again dreamed of a tense journey, and by the time he opened his eyes, he had returned to Neverland, lying on his bed. The end.